Hi guys, welcome back to Elizabeth Ann Reads. I'm Anne. Today we are doing the mid-year book Freakout tag. So that's just kind of questions about your reading so far this year, what you've enjoyed, what you haven't enjoyed, things along those lines. And believe it or not, it's pretty much at the halfway point almost of the year. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And yeah, just talk about some of the things I've read this year. So the first question is the best book that you have read this year in 2020. And that has to go to Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I started reading Sanderson last year, but this is the first year I've kind of really been delving into his works and the Cosmere as a whole. And I've been enjoying everything by him that I've been reading. And this one I just read in May. What month are we in? Yeah, June. In May, I just read this one and I loved it. It was so good. And I'm looking forward to moving on to the next one very, very soon. I'm just going to tell you right now, Brandon Sanderson, and specifically The Way of Kings, is going to kind of dominate this list. So I am going to insert some other things, just so this is not the only book I'm talking about. That being said, I also want to mention Sweep, The Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Auxier. If I was not so obsessed with Brandon Sanderson currently, this would definitely be at the top of the list of favorite books this year. This, in my mind, is a pretty much perfect book. So good, such a great story, such great characters, just the right amount of sadness and kind of bittersweetness, and oh, so good. Read this one for sure if you haven't read it yet. Question number 2 is the best sequel you have read this year, and that again is going to go to Brandon Sanderson with Starsight, which is the sequel to Skyward. This is a young adult science fiction series that he is currently writing. And so this follows Spensa, who is a pilot. And yeah, this continues on her journey, following her. I can't tell you too much because it's a sequel. But kind of following her to kind of a different area, a different planet, training programs, etc. And follows her and her friends and some new friends. And this one ends on a huge, huge cliffhanger. And the next one's not coming out till next year, I don't think. So that's a bummer. But this was a fantastic sequel to the story that he started in Skyward. All right, question number 3 is the best new release that you haven't read yet. I don't read a lot of new releases. There are a few that I'm looking forward to, that I was looking forward to in 2020, but they're all in the second half, so we'll be talking about those soon. But the only one really that I can think of that I haven't read yet that was kind of, I was watching as it came out, was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which is the prequel to The Hunger Games. I am still interested in this. I do still want to read it. I don't have super high expectations, but it's definitely one I want to get to pretty soon. And I actually have it on hold at the library. So as soon as the library is fully functioning again, I should be able to get my hands on it. And then question 4, following that up, is most anticipated release. So books you're looking forward to in the second half of the year. And I have a few, but the number 1 is surprisingly not Brandon Sanderson. That's number 2. But number 1 is actually Jasper Fforde, who is my favorite author. And he has a new book coming out in just 2 weeks. It comes out on July 2nd in the UK, so I have to wait to get my copy from the UK. But it's called The Constant Rabbit. And Jasper Fforde just writes really creative, kind of absurd, fantastical stories set in kind of an alternate Earth, I guess. And this one's about giant rabbits. So, sounds fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. I will be reading it as soon as I get my copy. So hopefully mid-July. And yeah, so that's definitely what I'm anticipating the most. Second, of course, is Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, which is book 4 in the Stormlight Archives. That's coming out in November. And then there's also 2 middle grade books that I'm really looking forward to, continuations of series. One is the 3rd Morrigan Crow book, which I think is called Hollowpox. And those are by, who are those by? By Jessica Townsend. So I'm looking forward to that. And then there's a new Keeper of the Lost Cities book, I believe, coming out in the fall as well. Those are that series right behind me. There's a new book in that series as well. So I'm looking forward to those in the fall. But first up is Jasper Fforde, which I'm super, super excited about. All right, question 5 is the biggest disappointment of the year. And that's going to have to go to Leanne Moriarty. The Husband's Secret. I read Big Little Lies last year and loved it. And so I was really looking forward to reading more Liane Moriarty. And just about a month ago, I picked up The Husband's Secret, and I did not like it at all. I did not like the story. I did not like the characters. I did not like what she did with the plot and kind of where she took her characters and the kind of the layers of deception and dishonesty that were going on. I really did not like that one. So I was really disappointed. I'm not giving up on Liane Moriarty yet. But yeah, that was a big disappointment. Question 6 is the biggest surprise of the year, and I have 2 that I'm going to mention. The first is Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. This I read back in January, I think, or February. I think it's February. I had never read Ruta Sepetys before. This was my first, and I tend to not like specifically YA books, but also just books that are very hyped and authors that are very hyped. So I had purposefully not read Ruta Sepetys, even though she was kind of on my radar of someone I really should give a try sometime. So I ended up picking up Fountains of Silence, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite books of the year. If you cut out all the Brandon Sanderson, it would probably be like top 3. But I thought her characters were so good, and their interactions and the friendship they built was so good. And the story was so interesting, and the history that she gives you is just so fascinating. And I thought it was really, really fantastic, and it really, really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to hate it. I just wasn't expecting to love it nearly as much as I did. The second book I want to mention is actually a graphic novel, and This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews. And I mention this because I don't generally like graphic novels. I found very few that I even kind of like. And this one I absolutely loved. It follows these 2 boys that go on this kind of adventure. They start off following these lanterns in the river, and then it goes from there, and they meet all kinds of characters. And I loved the friendship. I loved the loyalty between these 2 boys, and it was just a very fun adventure. And I just thought this was such a fantastic graphic novel. All right, question 7 is favorite new author. And that can be either like a debut author or a new to you author. I, of course, have to mention Brandon Sanderson. I told you I was going to be talking about Brandon Sanderson a lot in this video. Like I mentioned already, I did start reading some of his stuff last year. I read the Mistborn trilogy last year, and then I read Skyward right at the end of last year. But this year, I have just kind of become a little bit obsessed with his work and with the Cosmere. And so I've been reading a lot, and I have a lot more to read still. But it's the year of Brandon Sanderson. So you're going to keep hearing about him in pretty much every video. So that's just the way it is, but that is probably top of the list. However, if you want to be very, very technical, because he's not new to me in 2020, I'm going to mention Jonathan Auxier, who wrote Sweet, which I already mentioned. I had never read Jonathan Auxier before this, and then after this I continued on to read The Night Gardener, which I also enjoyed. And then I also have another book by him on my shelf that I haven't read yet. But I think he's really fantastic as well, and I'm looking forward to future books from him as well. Question 8 is, who is your newest fictional crush? And I'm going to skip this question because I think it's a stupid question. I don't get fictional crushes. If I do, I'll let you know, but I generally don't. I mean, there's characters I like, but it's not a thing for me. All right, the next question is your newest favorite character. And I mean, let's be real. We've got Kaladin, we've got Yasna, we've got Syl, and we've got Shallan. All fantastic characters. I know Shallan is very polarizing, that a lot of people really, really dislike her. I really love her. I think she's great. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because everyone's talking about this book and everyone's talking about these characters, and they're great. That's not who I'm going to say, though, because I want to give you some variety. I'm actually going to mention a classic, or a children's classic, and that is The Patchwork Girl of Oz. This is a bind-up of several Oz books. Patchwork Girl of Oz is the 7th book in the series, and we follow this patchwork girl. She was made and stuffed from a patchwork quilt and then brought to life by a magician, but there was kind of a snafu along the way, and a munchkin boy put in more into her brains than was supposed to be there, so just a lot more spunk and a lot more intelligence and a lot more... She was supposed to be kind of a servant without a huge amount of brains, basically, is what they were attempting to create. But he just put in a lot of extra stuff. And so she ends up as this very, just very exuberant, very loud, very bold, very just kind of over the top character. And she's funny and snarky, and I love her so much. She was so much fun to read. That's been my favorite book in the Oz series for sure. So I would definitely recommend The Patchwork Girl of Oz. So question 10 is a book that made you cry. We're just going to keep this one simple. No one's shocked. Also, this one, again, probably no one's shocked. Both great books, both made me cry. Fantastic. Question 11 is a book that made you happy. And for that, I'm going to go back to This Was Our Pact. This, again, like I said, is just sweet and whimsical and the perfect graphic novel. And it just made me super happy to read this book. Question 12 is the most beautiful book you have acquired this year, bought or received. And for that, I'm going to say Glass Town by Isabel Greenberg. This is another graphic novel, a YA graphic novel, about the Brontes and their fantasy world they created as children. So, one, I just think this cover's really, really beautiful. But then, the naked hardback under the dust jacket is also just really, really, really beautiful. I just love this a lot. I think the artwork is fantastic. So yeah, we're going to say this is the most beautiful book I have acquired this year. And then question 13 is, what books do you still need to read by the end of the year? The easy answer is all of them. There's still a lot of books I haven't read. I still have close to 200 on my TBR shelf. It is under 200 now, but still close. And I need to read all of those, within reason. I won't read all of them, but at least give it a valiant effort. But I started off the year with a list of 20 books that I wanted, 20 books specifically that were already on my TBR that I wanted to read in 2020. And I think I've only read 4 of them, which means I still have quite a few to go. I'm just going to mention a couple. We'll go with a couple of the kind of the fatter ones on the list, which is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Those are all books I need to get to by the end of the year. And should have gotten to before this year, but haven't. But yeah, that and all the other books I want to read, which is several hundred. So we'll see how we do. I'll check back in with you at the end of the year and let you know how many of those I got through. That is it. Thank you for watching. I hope you all do this tag as well, because I would love to hear, get a check-in on how your reading is going. But if you don't have a channel, or if you haven't made this video yet, or if you just feel like it, be sure and comment down below what is your favorite book that you have read so far this year. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Hope you have a great day.